When it was launched in 1989, the Mazda MX5 was a revolution. It was the same roadster formula that we loved in the MG Midget and the Lotus Elan, but it was modernised and refined to make it more reliable, more practical and more usable on a day-to-day basis. But now it's over 30 years old, the MX5 is a classic in its own right. People are restoring and preserving these cars for the future, and values are on the way up. So if you want to get into one before values hit early midget and Elan prices, here's everything you need to know to buy yourself a Mk1 Mazda MX5. Our friends at Lancaster Insurance are giving you the chance to win a luxury afternoon tea gift voucher at a Classic Lodges hotel of your choice to use in 2022. Click the link in the video description to enter, and good luck! Let's get it out of the way. Rust. The MX5 might be a more modern car than an MGB, but sadly it's no more immune from rot than the British sports cars that inspired it. There's a lot to look out for on an MX5 these days, so we'll start at the rear. These rear arches can rot inside and out, so get a good look up in here and feel all the way around this lip to make sure the metal in there is still solid. Working the way down where the rear quarter meets the sill, there is a nice little valley in here for mud, dirt and road grime to collect over the years and again rot your car from the inside out. So have a good look in there and just knock on it to make sure that no filler or old mud is falling out of it. While we're at the back, you also want to try and get underneath the car, jack it up or get it up on a lift if you can. Check that the rear subframe's solid because they are a known rot point on an MX5, and you can also see then the boot floors, which are, again, if there's been water getting into the boot, that's probably rotting out as well. The battery is located in the boot in an MX5, so while you're there, make sure the points that secure it are still solid, because if they're not, the battery might slide over to one side and dent your rear wings outwards from within, and that is nasty. Speaking of nasty, rotten sills. MX5s are infamous for them, so get all the way along here, feel all the way along the sill for any filler, any signs that it's been badly repaired in the past, and just have a good knock on it. Make sure it's completely solid. The front of an MX5 is sadly no more immune from rot than the rear end. The windscreen pillars can rot, and if they do, it's quite difficult and complex metalwork to get it sorted. Then there's the front wings. These can rot particularly down the bottom where they get stone chipped and bubble up and rust over time, although this is only a bolt-on panel, so that is less serious. While you've got the bonnet up doing other checks, it's also worth looking at the condition of the slam panel to check firstly the car's not being crashed, and second of all that that's not rotting away. Check the chassis legs while you're there, and the condition of the bulkhead. These are all things you should check on most cars of this age. On an MX5, it's no less of a problem than any other car. It's worth noting the likes of Moss Europe can supply repair panels for all the common MX5 rust spots. Rot therefore needn't be terminal, but make sure you factor those repair costs into your purchase price. Ask most people why their choice of MX5 is a Mk1 and chances are they'll point to these. Yep, the pop-up headlights are a defining feature of the Mk1 MX5. They really make the look, and they do make it echo the Lotus Elan that inspired it. They should move quickly and easily and up and down together. It's not uncommon though for the metal covers over them to get bent over time. If people rest things on them or take them off to paint them or anything else like that, you can straighten them out a little bit or adjust them, but to be honest, these days it's far easier to get a good set of replacements, either second hand or brand new. The Mk1 MX5 used early water-based paint, and particularly on the red, it doesn't last. Cars fade to a kind of powdery washed out look, or in the case of the red cars, just go pink. And if the car is still shiny, ask if it's the original paint, and if it has been resprayed, look for signs that it's a good quality respray with no overspray on things like the glass or the window rubbers. One of the best elements of the MX5 is the fact that it's a convertible, and yet it's sold well in Britain, surprisingly. But there are plenty of things to check to make sure that you're getting a good one. For a start, the drainage channels. Make sure they're clear. Put the roof up, pour some water on it, and make sure that it comes out the bottom of the sills and isn't stuck in there, because if it is, it's full up with mud and leaves, that is going to rot your car out from within. And then there's the roof itself. It is doable while you're in the car, but do it slowly and carefully. Does it move easily? Are there any creaking or cracking noises that suggest the frame is rusty and about to break? And look at the catches. They should grab hold of the windscreen frame and lock in really easily without too much struggle, without fighting you to find their location. Look at the roof skin. It should be tight but not stressed. It shouldn't be looking like it's about to split anywhere, and it should fit flush with the top of the wings. It's not the end of the world to change a soft top roof on this era, as I proved with our Mark III MR2, but again, you want a few £100 for even a second-hand replacement roof. So again, a bad roof isn't a deal breaker, but make sure you get it out of the price of the car. Whether you go for a 1.6 or a 1.8, the MX5 has got a bulletproof powertrain in it that's good for well over 200,000 miles and will reliably start no matter how cold or unpleasant the morning you're trying to use it on is. Look at the cam sensor there on top of the cam cover. Are there any oil leaks coming from it? On a 1.8 litre engine like this one, they can actually leak down and the oil will rot through the heater hose, which isn't desirable. Rattly tappets are not unusual for an MX5, particularly if it's a higher mileage 1.8, but it's fairly easily cured by just sorting out your valve clearances, flushing the engine through with some flushing liquid, changing the oil, and then just going for a good drive. And it isn't the end of the world if it is still rattling, it's nothing to worry about. The cam belt interval on an MX5 engine is about every 60,000 miles, but if it does break because the previous owner forgot to do it, it is a non-interference engine, so you won't have any engine damage if it does break, just a slightly uncomfortable drive home on the back of a low loader. MX5s have got tough little engines, but if a 1.6 litre car starts overheating, it's not an unknown problem. The 1.6 was originally mounted transversely in the front of a Mazda 323 and turned longitudinally to put in the MX5. But because of that, the coolant doesn't go properly around the fourth cylinder at the back of the engine, which can cause it to overheat. Thankfully, there is an aftermarket coolant rerouting kit that gets the hose around that fourth cylinder and should cure any overheating problems. If you're driving along and there's an unusually high amount of noise, vibration and engine oily smell in the interior, it's probably because one of two rubber boots on top of the gearbox has worn away and deteriorated with age. It's not disastrous, it's a cheap and easy job to do to replace one. As for the gearbox itself, the manual is a hardy, tough unit. I actually know an old MX5 breaker that used to throw 5-speed gearboxes away. They were so durable, no one ever needed to replace them. The MX5 is known for having a sweet manual gear change. It's one of the best manual transmissions ever put in a production car in my opinion. So if the change isn't precise, it isn't sharp, and the clutch has got a really low biting point, that's a good sign that the clutch slave cylinder is on its way out. Have a look at the clutch fluid, and if it's dark grey or black, that's another sign that your slave is on the way out. If you're looking at a former automatic MX5 that's been converted to a manual car, it will probably still have the less peaky manual camshafts in it. It's not the end of the world, but it won't be as quick as an equivalent factory manual car. One of the reasons the MX5 handles so sweetly is its fully adjustable double wishbone suspension setup. That means it handles well, but unfortunately it's very alignment sensitive. If on the test drive the car tram lines, it won't go in a straight line, or it just doesn't feel like it's really responding to steering inputs, there's a very good chance the car is in need of an alignment. Particularly check the tyres for uneven wear as a surefire sign that you need to get your car down for some tracking. Other than that, it's just general aging components. Springs can rust and break, but they're not expensive or difficult to change, and the suspension bushes will deteriorate over time and make a car go from feeling sharp and responsive to soft and soggy. If you do want your car to handle sharper and also get the ride height a little bit lower, there are plenty of aftermarket options for adjustable coilover suspension, and the pricier you go, you can even adjust things like the firmness of the damping as well as your ride height. The standard MX5 brakes are perfectly good enough for normal road driving. All-round discs on a sub 1,000 kilo car are more than good enough, but seized calipers aren't uncommon. That said, it's not an expensive job to rectify. The likes of Moss Europe will do you a single replacement rear caliper for 75 quid and a pair of front ones for just 90 quid. Bargain. The MX5 interior is not a commonplace for problems. It's typical 90s Japanese, and a lot of it is a bit scratchy, but it does last well. If the MX5 you're looking at has got electric windows and they're slow to operate, there's a good chance that they just need a good grease up. Spray some clear silicone down there. If it smells of damp old dog in here, or if the carpets are wet, it's a sign that the roof is probably leaking somewhere. So have a good feel all the way around the windscreen frame and anywhere else where the roof does seal. Try and find out where it's leaking, because if water's been in here for a while, you could be looking at a rusty floor pan. So there's everything you need to know to buy yourself a Mk1 MX5. But now you know all that, how should you go about buying one? The days are gone when you could get a usable MX5 for 1,500 quid. Nowadays you'll be paying that for a project car. But generally we'd budget over £3,000 for a nice example, and for a mint sub 50,000 miler like Mazda's heritage car here, you can pay as much as £7,000 or £8,000. Popular on the UK market are Japanese import MX5s, badged as the UNOS Roadster. They do get a few niceties like power steering, electric windows, speakers in the headrest, and some have even got a limited slip differential. But these days you will pay more for them, and because they're Japanese market where they don't salt the roads, they weren't undersealed from factory, so if it's been in the UK for a while, they may well have some rust. Don't be deterred if you can't drive manual. An automatic MX5 is still a way to have a bit of fun, and it's a perfectly decent automatic gearbox. And as for the engines, well, take your pick. They're both perfectly decent, although the 1.8 is more suited to motorway driving. Whichever you choose though, in the Mk1 Mazda MX5, you've got an appreciating classic that you can enjoy every day of the year, all year round, right here, right now. And speaking of which, I'm off to do just that. See you soon.